Here's the background. The International Relations Minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, is now demanding that the country's Home Affairs Minister, Peter Dutton, retract comments about white farmers. The Australian High Commissioner has officially been informed that South Africa is offended by Dutton's remarks. Well, for more on that, let me take you to Sydney in Australia, and Australian journalist Oliver Whitfield-Miocic is with us. Oliver, good afternoon to you again. So has there been any formal response now to essentially what was a démarche that was delivered by South Africa's International Relations Minister?
Well, it does seem that the government ministers are all now closing ranks. What we see now are comments from the Foreign Affairs Minister, which really seem to support what Peter Dutton had said. Julie Bishop was going on about how Australia is now closely monitoring the murder rate in South Africa, and that she was very concerned about the 19,000 murders reported in South Africa in 2017. And when she was asked about whether farmers should get special visas, Bishop had said that Australia already had an existing offshore humanitarian visa program, and that they were now looking to see when other measures needed to be included in that. Now, as for whether there needed to be any sort of rebuttal of those claims, it was very intriguing to see that actually the Deputy Prime Minister said that the comments were made in very good faith, and that actually it was a bit uncouth for South Africa to ask for the comments to be rescinded.
So do we read into that now that the comments from Dutton himself can be officially interpreted as Australian government policy, as you tell us that other ministers are starting to close rank?
I'm going to stop quite short of that, because that is something that Malcolm Turnbull said today during comments that he made. Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister, not defending what Peter Dutton was saying, and he would really be the person that was going to validate this if it was going to be government policy. He sort of skirted around the issue and said that the programme that Australia has is thoroughly non-discriminatory, before adding that Australia has a really large community of South African ancestry, people who are here that make a phenomenal contribution. So it's not really at the minute government policy, but it does seem that comparing to yesterday, there's a lot more government ministers that are now agreeing with Peter Dutton than what we had then.
Will there be any further diplomatic engagement, and one hopes rapprochement, between Canberra and Pretoria, I wonder?
It's very difficult to say at the minute, because what seems to be happening, at least with what the comments from Julie Bishop is happening, is that they're going to be closing ranks. I mean, Julie Bishop also added earlier on that she was very, very concerned by what was happening in South Africa, but she thought that there would be no sort of diplomatic spat between the two countries, that this would be something that they could iron over. But then when you look at the other side of this picture from the opposition parties, we're seeing a real push against what Peter Dutton has said. The Labour leader, the opposition leader, has said that he didn't know what had motivated Mr. Dutton to make those comments, and he tried to balance what he was saying that there are some media reports that would indicate that some farmers are experiencing difficulty in South Africa, but then he was saying there are other reports to say that other South Africans have also been the victims of crime, something that we'd heard coming from Pretoria earlier on, saying that black people in some townships, they have got higher murder rates than some of the white farmers do. But then we've also heard from the minority party, the Greens, who were saying, and these are really quite out there comments for a political party to be making here, that Mr. Dutton was an out-and-out racist, and the policy that he was trying to reintroduce was harking back to the white Australian policy days back a few decades ago.
But what we can understand at this point, Oliver, is that there would therefore be a greater propensity at this time for the Australian authorities to assist any white South African farmer should they choose to have a visa fast-tracked.
That seems to be the case, and it seems especially to be the case if they come under this existing humanitarian program that allows 12,000 people from all over the world to come and settle themselves here. It now also seems to be the case that the government is looking at maybe setting up another scheme for them to arrive as well. So it does seem to be that we're heading in the direction that Peter Dutton's comments could be becoming more of an accepted thing. But you've got to remember that at the minute, the government is hosting leaders from Southeast Asia for the ASEAN summit. They're going to be very busy over this weekend. So what we're probably going to see is maybe an attempt to brush these comments under the carpet. We're going to have to wait and see, though, because at the minute, the comments are generating quite a lot of interest here in the media. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation has covered this story all day, as have major corporate networks and the big networks such as Channel 7 and Channel 9. So there is still some traction in this story, but I think we're going to try and see some downplaying over the coming days.
I think there's a fair amount of traction in the story as far as South Africa is concerned as well. Oliver Whitfield-Miocic, live for Newsday in Sydney in Australia. Thank you very much indeed.